Welcome to Thought for April the 2nd. Our readings are Numbers chapter 16, Proverbs chapter 12, and Galatians chapters 1 and 2. And our thought is, it is no longer I who live. The Apostle Paul has a most urgent message to bring to the Galatians, a message which has challenged believers ever since. Paul writes, I am astonished that you are so quickly deserting him who called you to the grace of Christ and are turning to a different gospel. Not that there is another one, but there are some who trouble you and want to distort the gospel of Christ. Chapters 1 and verses 6 and 7. Paul is emphatic as to how important it is that the original gospel is maintained. He adds, even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to the one we preach to you, let him be accursed. Verse 8. The potential for some to corrupt the original gospel is a fundamental reason why we need to constantly read God's word, so that the original message becomes part of our thinking, with the result that humanly devised beliefs like going to heaven when we die are immediately seen as wrong, and we search the context of any verses that others advocate as teaching it and see what they really mean. Why do some turn away from that which is true? There is an interesting example in the chapter we read in Numbers chapter 16, which tells us how some of the Levites challenged the leadership of Moses. They say to him, "You have gone too far. For all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Why then do you exalt yourself?" Their complaint is, "You have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, nor given us inheritance of fields and vineyards," we read in verse 14. Their minds are focused on positions of prestige and material rewards, but such will only come in God's good time in his kingdom. They had a false impression of what it is, in God's sight, to be holy. We are reminded of the principle spelled out in the verse in Hebrews. Strive for peace with everyone, and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. Hebrews 12 and verse 14. Turning to Galatians again, there is one key verse that we do well to memorize, for it sums up both Paul's and Moses' attitude to things divine. I have been crucified with Christ, writes Paul. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Chapter 2 and verse 20. Well, thank you for joining us once again for Thought for the Day, where together we can open up the pages of God's Word, remembering that it is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path.